Hey,
Lino,
Michael.
how are you?
Good, Michael. We want to apologize before anything else. We were ready to go at our 4 p.m. time, and the building we're at, the fire alarm went off. And
a great disaster. It does not appear that there is any injuries or even any fire.
So
but there was disruption.
Yeah, the good students of the St. Michael's fire department, the volunteer fire department, they came out here and they kicked us out of our office, so we could not start
it makes it
on
tough.
time.
It makes it. But Lino, I feel very secure.
I do too.
And I ran to my room and I got a glass of chocolate milk, so I didn't want to like waste it, so I brought it with me.
Good. Do you have chocolate in your room?
No, it's in the fridge upstairs.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
No. Well, some people have like a mini fridge.
Yeah.
I don't.
Me neither. So
it's your room.
Anyhow, folks, welcome back to the Edmundite show.
I know you've missed us. It's been a couple weeks away.
We had a great Christmas celebration.
Hooray!
Yeah, we have at least 1 week off without active ministry. At least I had it. I don't know about you.
I did not, as a matter of fact. But
oh, I'm sorry. Well, I did have a week.
That's just the nature of the beast.
Without any active ministry. Was good. It was good to be with the folks. It was good to share the spirit of Christmas and talk about Jesus' birth and all that stuff. It was great. I don't know.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, but last weekend, on Sunday, we had the celebration of the Solemnity of Epiphany.
We did.
And last Monday, we had the solemnity of the Baptism of the Lord.
Also true. I think it's a feast. It's not a solemnity.
Yeah. So both of those celebrations
trivia for you there.
Put the end to our Christmas season. So now on the church, since last Tuesday, we are in what we call the ordinary time.
Correct.
So we want to talk to you about the ordinary time, what the ordinary time is about, and what we're going to do during the ordinary time.
I think just to kick us off here, I think the word ordinary itself, I don't know how helpful it is in this context, because people hear ordinary and they think, oh, unimportant or not special or whatever. It's not as if nothing happens during ordinary time, far from it. There's just not something specific in the sense of, Christmas celebrates something specific, Lent celebrates something specific, Advent celebrates something specific. So it's not something tailored in that sense, but that doesn't mean that there isn't all sorts of things, to discuss and to think about and to reflect. The church does not stop during ordinary time.
Yep. And I think that also that the sense of ordinary is to look on the ordinary life of Jesus, if you will, his public ministry, the nitty-gritty of and the in and outs of Jesus's life on earth, that didn't have to do directly with his death and resurrection, but it had to do with his ministry and what he did every day, like we do, like human beings do. We go to work and
absolutely
we call our ordinary life, if you will.
Lino, before we continue further, I have a confession to make.
Go for it.
This is not what you would refer to as actual chocolate milk.
Oh, good Lord.
This is chocolate soy milk.
Oh, great.
Yep. This is a vegan product. I just had to get that off my chest.
Good. So, during the ordinary time and during the year, we talked about this before. There's 3 years in the church: year A, B, and C. So year A, what's up?
I think I was gonna say time out to explain it, but then I think you're starting to explain what that is. So I'm gonna not time out anymore.
All right. So in order to organize, if you will, the liturgy.
Yep.
And in order to read the Gospels, in order to read most of the bulk, because during the liturgical year, as it's structured right now, we read, I think it's about 90% of the Bible in our liturgical celebrations. Within not during the year, but during the 3-cycle year, ABC, and the 2-cycle year during the week.
Or at least from most of the books. I haven't done the math. Well, that's probably more detail than we need to go into, but we cover a lot of the Bible.
So during the Sundays of the years, and particularly on ordinary time, we have 3 cycles, year A, B, and C, and every year we dedicate most of the time to a particular gospel writer.
Right.
So in the year A, we read mostly the Gospel of Matthew. Year B, we are right now, we read mostly the Gospel of Mark. And then on year C, we read mostly the Gospel of Luke.
Well, wait a minute, Lino. There's 4 Gospels.
I know. So these 3 Gospels we have before, so they are what we call the synoptic Gospels.
Right.
And they're very close to each other.
Right.
And then we leave the Gospel of John, which is more theocentric or more theological, if you will, to more
spiritual in a sense.
Yeah,
it's
so John
a different portrayal of Jesus
is used in particular celebrations. For example, we read the Gospel of John on Christmas Day, Mass.
True.
The beginning of the Gospel of John. That the Word was at the beginning, and the Word was with God.
And the Word was God.
Because of God. So it's nothing. John has nothing related to the actual birth of Jesus.
Right.
But his Gospel starts with Jesus being at the beginning with the Father becoming a man.
Right.
And the same thing happens during. We use most of John's Gospel at during the Lent and you're distracting me today.
I'm sorry. It was the fire alarm, and I can't. Now the milk is distracting me, but I didn't want to pour it back into the jug. So I'm sorry. I'll be better behaved.
John is read mostly in Lent and then during the Easter season.
Right.
So what we're going to talk about today is that because we are going to be listening or reading a lot the Gospel of Mark during the next Sundays, and a little bit during Lent and Easter, and then we're going to continue reading Mark's Gospel during the rest of the ordinary time after Pentecost.
Yep.
We're going to talk about a little bit of what the Gospel of Mark is, who was Mark, what is a Gospel.
These are all good things.
Do you want to start us off?
Let's dive into that. Yeah, so I guess when thinking of a Gospel, like what is a Gospel? That is a genre, so it's descriptive in terms of what type of literature it is, but it's also, I don't want it to seem like a genre in the sense like, a thriller is a genre, or like a mystery story, because it's more than just simply a descriptor of what type of words are being written. The word itself, in a convoluted way, which we won't get into the details of, but the root of it we can take back to a Greek word which essentially means good news.
Yep.
Okay, so the gospel is what was considered to be and is considered to be good news. There's something here that's life-giving. There's something here that's worthwhile of hearing because it tells the tale of this person, Jesus Christ, what this person, Jesus Christ, meant for the world, for us, for the church, for salvation, everything. Without these documents, we wouldn't know of Jesus in the way that we do know, and therefore we couldn't have any understanding of our faith in the way that we know our faith, because that's obviously the core of what it is. So a writing that tells in a particular way, in a theological way, the story of this person, Jesus, and the ministry of Jesus, the life of Jesus, the death of Jesus, the resurrection of Jesus, all these things are incorporated in a text that we call a gospel. There were more gospels written than made the final cut, as it were, into sacred scripture, but the church community, once upon a time gathering together, decided that the 4 that made their way into the Bible as we know it now are the ones that are to be really understood and known in a particular way, because there's something special there. So that's kind of a very broad overview of what we're talking about when we mean gospel. It's not just any old reading from Scripture. It's from one of those 4 books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, that tell in a very particular way the story of Christ.
And also that this genre didn't existed before Jesus.
Right.
So in the thing is that in the Old Testament, you have different genres of literary text. You have novels, you have stories, you have poetry, you have apocalyptic writings. So, but the what we know as gospel only came to be with Jesus and telling the story of Jesus, because the gospel is not also a biography.
Right.
Yes, it does tells us about the person of Jesus Christ, but with a very heavy theological background and a very
Yeah.
and it was written with the Easter experience in the background.
That resurrection of Christ moment.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. I'll kind of dovetail on what I was saying earlier. So if the Gospels were merely just a retelling of the life of this person, you know, why would we need 4 of them? Would not one be enough or what have you? Because each of the books that we have, each of the Gospels that we have, attributed to a different author, a different community, or however you want to say it, tells us something different about Jesus. Okay, so you can get a full picture in a way from each individual one, but you can get a much more holistic picture, I guess, by knowing them all and reading them all, because they all focus on different aspects, and to give you a fuller picture of just what it was that was going on and what the communities of the time thought of this person and this experience and this community.
Not only that, I think that also the writer writes from their own reality. So they write about the aspects of Jesus that were more prevalent for them. So if you read the Gospel of Matthew, it's a very Jewish gospel.
Yeah, because he's writing to a Jewish
he's
audience.
a Jew, and he's writing to a Jewish audience. So when he talks about the Beatitudes, he have Jesus going up to the mountain and sits on a chair, which is all the characteristics of, first of all, the mountain is where you find God. If you remember Moses getting the law, he's in the Mount Sinai, and the top of the mount. So you have that, the mount is where you find God, and then he sits down as the rabbi, he's the teacher, and he's going to tell people what he thinks. So
people would have made that connection.
Exactly. For Matthew, that connection is right there. But when Luke says the same story, the Beatitudes, Jesus is in a plane, because Luke is writing for a mainly Gentile population, or non-Jewish. So for them, those symbolism of Jesus being on the mount, on the top of the mountain, or sitting, they
doesn't have any impact. Like what?
So he has Jesus on a plane. So that's the difference between the Gospels. The only important thing, Michael, I think, is the Gospel of Mark, at least with the studies they have done up to today. Because none of this is set in stone. Every day new documents
theory,
come up.
Right. It's what scholars best think it is. That doesn't mean that it's 100% accurate.
So the theory that is most effective is that the Gospel of Mark was the first Gospel.
Right. The oldest one.
Or the oldest one.
Earliest written.
And before that, I forgot, the letter to Thessalonians, Paul letter to Thessalonians, is the oldest New Testament document.
Some of the letters of Paul are older than Mark. So this is maybe more detailed than we need to go into, but I think
but I wanted to mention it.
No, that's fine. No, but I think the earliest letters of Paul are maybe from like the 50s or 60s AD, whereas usually I have heard Mark being given the year 70 80. 69, 70, 80.
So Mark is the first gospel writer, and the theory is that Luke and Matthew knew this text
exactly,
and they wrote their own gospels based on what Mark has written. And there's another source that we don't know, we never have seen, but
we theorize.
It's a theory because there's some texts that are in the Gospel of Matthew and in the Gospel of Luke,
but not in the Gospel of Mark.
So so there should have been something outside of Mark, but we haven't found that document.
When I teach this in my course, I have this whole diagram. I don't know if it was helpful or not for the students in terms of how
lines all over the way.
But I promise it does make some sort of sense if you look into it further.
But the importance is that these men, the authors of the gospel, they wanted to let us know, those of us who did not have the grace to be with Jesus and the grace to see Jesus when he was on the world, they wanted to live a written record of what Jesus did. So I believe that that's very important. As we said, it's more like a theological document, like they're relating the history or the story of this man, which was also God, who came back to life on a Sunday. So I think that is really good. I don't know if you have anything else to say about Mark. that I haven't said before?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where there's been thousands and thousands of books written about it, so we're not going to cover it all today. But if it's something that interests you, I would encourage anybody to kind of look into it more. There's so much to read and to discover. And not just about Mark or the Gospels, but any scriptural stuff. There's so much material that's out there, and a better understanding of Scripture is a better understanding of our faith, because that's really a core foundational element of it. And certainly I'll be thinking of the Gospel of Mark just about every day, because when preparing a homily for Mass, we're reading from Mark, we're following Mark, we're going chronologically with Mark, so hopefully I will gain a deeper appreciation for Mark as well. This is my first go round in this cycle as a priest, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah,
there's two. I think when I was in school, so one of my New Testament classes was we read the Gospel of Mark from Mark 1:1 to I don't remember where it finished, but it finished. It has 3 endings.
Yeah,
I can tell you
16?
That. Maybe
16 chapters of Mark.
So there's
people can correct us.
There's 3 interesting. I think there are 3 or 2 interesting facts about the Gospel of Mark. The first one is Mark doesn't have the birth of Jesus.
That's true. Yep.
Mark starts with the baptism of the Lord,
and then Jesus is often moving.
Yeah, has an introduction. And then it moves right into the baptism of the Lord, John the Baptist, and then the ministry, and until the day Jesus dies.
Right. So there's no. People sometimes are kind of surprised by this. There's no baby in the manger, right? There's no wise men. That doesn't happen in Mark's gospel.
Mark cuts directly to the chase.
Yep. So that's number 1.
Yeah. The other particular interesting fact about Mark is that he's writing to a community that's being persecuted.
Right.
So everything in Mark is in haste. I mean, if you read the readings, he's moving quickly. He used the word "and" a lot. And this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And sometimes there's no like a period or something. It just keeps going, because he needs to tell the story quickly, because we need to do this now.
Reminds me of some of my colleagues.
Right.
Some of our colleagues. Not to mention any names.
Yeah. But he is very quick. The other fun fact, if you will, about the Gospel of Mark
I'm having fun.
Yeah, he's harsh.
Yeah, more so than people anticipate.
He's the harshest of the 3 Gospels. Like, he's very harsh with the depiction of the apostles and the people around Jesus.
Right.
Like, for example, the story when the two brothers, now I'm drawing a blank, of course. I read about this.
James and John.
James and John, they want to sit one of his right and one of his left. Mark puts the same apostles to do this, and they're doing this immediately after Jesus is telling them they're going to die. If you read Matthew, I think Matthew is the mother of the 2 of them that asked Jesus.
Yeah.
So Matthew and Luke soften a little bit, but Mark is very critical of the apostles.
Yeah.
So I think I like it, because I think one of all is normal, and second of all, I think that depicts the idea that the disciples or the apostles had little or no clue what was going on until Easter with Jesus. So that's the thing. And the third thing is that the Gospel of Mark has 3 different endings.
Yeah.
The first ending, because Mark, again, this is a community that was being persecuted, and it was being harassed, and it was almost like no hope. So the Gospel of Mark ends with the empty tomb. That's it. So Jesus doesn't appear to the disciples.
Right.
Jesus doesn't show up. You have this the horrific scene of Jesus on the cross. He's buried, and the next thing is the empty tomb.
Right. So then
and that's it.
The reader's kind of left up to determine what happened here.
Yeah, because again, it's kind of like we don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And then later on, 2 other endings were added, kind of to be more cheerful and hopeful. But the original text has that ending of we don't know, which is kind of it was kind of anticlimactic when we were reading this as I said, in this class, because you're rooting for this guy, and then at the end nothing happens. It's like having a movie. I was with the
thinking that same thing. This may or may not surprise you, Lino, based on the type of movies that I like. But I know, like, you listening to the director's commentaries or whatever, and sometimes a director will say, "I wanted to have like a really harsh, really sad ending, but the movie studio didn't like that, so then I had to add in this extra thing, happy,
exactly.
blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
So it's kind of a similar concept in a way.
Well, it was really like the Sleeping Beauty without waking up.
Yeah.
Or one of those
people like
one of those Disney movies without the happy ending. Like everybody's happy at the end. No, this is, we don't know what happened.
It's like, she died.
Yeah, exactly. That wouldn't sell too many copies, right?
Not. I'd buy it.
Well, yeah. So that's the experience of Mark. That was who Mark is, or what he wrote. So he was the one that started this thing called the gospel, and then, as we said, Matthew and Mark kind of took on the task of rewriting or editorializing.
Yeah, presenting it in a different way to their particular audience, community, whatever it is, with new material.
Yeah. And then the Gospel of John was written a lot later.
Yeah, and that's kind of a whole nother beast.
Yeah. So that's what we call these three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the synoptic gospels, because they work together as a unity.
Yeah, there's a word, synopsis in English. So if you do a synopsis of something, you kind of summarize, give a big overview of a particular thing. So when you think of this word synoptic, it's related. These three are connected to each other. They're not summaries of each other, but they're connected in a way that the Gospel of John is not.
Yeah. So that's all that I had to say about the Gospel of Mark.
Yeah, I think that gives people enough to think about. One thing that I just want to talk about real briefly, because this is a thing that's happening in our wider St. Michael's College world. Service trips are out for the MOVE program.
Yep.
Lino works directly for the MOVE program. I do not, but I myself and Lino himself have gone on these service trips for our Mobilization of Volunteer Efforts MOVE program. And not to put you on the spot, but do you have something to say in terms of how programs like this work into kind of the spiritual goals of campus ministry here? What value does doing kind of community service work like this have? So
the idea of our service trips is to our students learn another reality. Here we are in a very small school, and we live in a bubble where almost everything is great and beautiful. But we are kind of shielded from the reality of the world somehow. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't have that. I mean, you go 20 minutes down the road, you can see poverty.
There's problems everywhere, but
the idea is that the students are in contact with that reality and react to that reality in a positive way. So our trips right now are 6 trips that are out. So some of them are building houses with Habitat for Humanity, volunteering with Habitat with Humanity. Some of them are teaching in schools, learning first graders read and write and all that good stuff that kids need to know to go forward. Some of them are in places for reservoirs for animals, trying to help the people who raise these animals. Some of them to animals that are for service, for people that is incapacitated. So yeah, and some of them are in serving in soup kitchens and stuff. So the idea is that they are sensitive to create sensitivity to these issues, that they are in contact with the people that maybe are not having such a great time. So the service trip can be an opportunity to these students to get in contact with these issues, and that goes part with the social teaching of the church, helping those who are in need. But at the same time, I believe here in MOVE, which is mobilization of volunteer efforts, which is what coordinates the volunteer efforts of the college. We have programs that run during the semester that are compatible with those things that students do during their service trips. So the idea is that maybe they get sensitized. I'm having a hard word time with this word today. But once that we create the sensitivity and they're aware of the problem, they can go here.
Yeah, they get exposed to it. They
get
know.
Exposed, yeah, so they can come back home
and
St. Michael's
having
College
that
home.
Different perspective.
And and maybe
hopefully
continue doing the service. But at the end of the day, the idea is to that the student, when they graduate from St. Michael's College, that experience will never go away, and that will be a stepping stone to wherever they go to dedicate their lives to not only to do whatever they have to do for their work and to keep their families and all this stuff, but also will be a stepping stone to be of help to others in their community, whatever they end up being. So yeah, right now we have our 6 service trips are out. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning last Saturday.
I wasn't going to bring it up, and that was the day when it was like 20 degrees below zero. So,
yeah,
I was very happy to see those people get on those planes.
That morning, I think with the wind chill was like minus 40, and it was snowing. And we had the first group at 4 in the morning. We took into the airport at 4:20. We had the second group at 9:30, 8:30. We had this third group, and then at 11 I had the fourth group. So it was very cold that day.
But everybody
I can drive
safely.
I can drive to the airport with my eyes closed
Lino
now.
knows the way.
And not this Saturday. I mean, our services go for a week.
Yeah.
They leave on Saturday. They come back next Saturday because on Monday we start again our
classes
the next semester.
Again. Yeah.
So on Saturday I have to go pick them up at the airport too. Thank goodness they come back later, so I don't have to be up early.
It's going to be cold and snowy again on Saturday.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So a little bit of
so with some
mirror image.
With some help, none of the flights will be canceled, so they will be here on time. So please keep our students in your prayers if you can. So they come back safely and they learned a lot of where they are, and their service will impact not only the people they are serving to, but the main idea is to impact their students in a positive way. So, and all of them, if they are watching, I hope not, because it should be working. We hope that you're doing great, and we're looking forward to see you on Saturday and hear all the good stories you have to tell us.
Indeed.
So, Michael, I think this is a good way, a good place where to shut it down today.
Ease back into our routine of regularly broadcasting.
Yeah, so we will see you next week at 4 p.m. If the alarm doesn't go off again.
If the alarm does not go off, if the creek doesn't out of the office. You know.
Michael and I were trying to stay here as long as we could, but the alarms were really loud, so we could not broadcast well.
We were evacuated.
And some of the security people, it's like, guys, I'm sorry to be the bad guy, but just have to get out. Like, okay. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Like it or dislike it if you don't like it. Leave us your comments if there's something we should have talked about and we didn't, or something you think we should talk about and we didn't. Please leave your comments. And we will see you back again next week.